to go?
Good afternoon. Yes, we are. You're all set and ready to go.
Thank you. Good evening. This is the Finance Administration Committee meeting, and we have on, I'm Ben Winograd. We have on members Deb Poland and Mark Zdanowicz, as well as Sherry Cantor. And we also have our financial expert, Lisa Newton, and Rick Ledwith. So I'll turn it over to Rick, and we have an event tonight, so that's why we're starting early, and we're gonna try to push through. If anybody's watching, if you wonder why we're talking fast, Rick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think first up we have approval of minutes from our last meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
You're muted, but I'm reading your lips, Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
And next up, we have discussion of two ordinances, two pension ordinances that we will need to amend. And I'll walk through these changes. They're relatively minor in nature, but it does involve a change to our ordinance. So what would happen is the council will receive, should you approve these this evening or recommend that we move forward, which I will do, we would receive these at the October 22nd council meeting, and you would set them for a public hearing in November. And both of these changes involve scenarios that we had not considered when we originally drafted the language decades ago. So the first one has to do with our 10-year certain benefit. So right now, the proposed language will allow an employee who selects a 10-year certain payment option upon retirement to name both a primary beneficiary and a contingent beneficiary. And right now, the current language only allows for a primary beneficiary to be named. So if a retiree dies before receiving that 10-year benefit, the remaining payments go to their primary beneficiary. However, we did have a scenario where the primary beneficiary died and the contingent beneficiary goes to the estate. So this would allow us to name a contingent beneficiary as well. So it's, like I said, a relatively minor change, one that we had not a scenario like that just never came up. And we had one present itself with a Board of Education member. And this will allow us in the future, we don't get many of these, but if we do, we'll allow a beneficiary to name a primary and a contingency beneficiary. And I'll pause there and see if there are any questions from the committee.
Thank you. And before we do, note that Barry Walters and Carol Blanks have also joined the meeting. Any questions?
Just a quick question through you, Mr. Chair. This seems pretty routine. Like most pension plans probably already have this. Is that what?
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it was one of those things where the language was drafted so long ago, and we don't have a lot of these types of benefits. Most people just select a normal retirement benefit. You get paid out a monthly amount for the rest of your life. This is a 10-year certain benefit, so you're getting paid over 10 years. You're guaranteed to get that 10-year payment. So we've had a few in our history, and most lived and never had to even go to the primary beneficiary. But then we had someone with the primary who the individual passed away, the primary passed away, and we just didn't have language for a contingent.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, it is fairly most would have both primary and contingency beneficiaries.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? And I'll note that Councilor Tiffany McGinnis is also on the call. I think Mark, okay. Yeah. Move on to the next.
So the next one, next proposed change will allow the plan to reimburse COLA contributions made to the plan by an employee who was a COLA member but was subsequently promoted or transferred to a position without COLA eligibility prior to retirement. So so this is the example. It's in a real life scenario that we have. So our Tier 1 and Tier 2 of our SEIU contracts all have COLA a COLA benefit, a cost of living adjustment that's made in retirement. So they pay 1% of their pay throughout their employment. And then when they retire, 3 years after they retire, they get a cost of living adjustment of 1% every year added to their pension. So what we have is we have 4 individuals who were in the union who got promoted to become directors over the years. And so they're in that director benefit, they're no longer eligible for a COLA benefit. So, but they paid into this COLA benefit as a union member, and we have no methodology within our ordinance that allows us to reimburse them the money that they paid in. So this, again, it's a scenario, a real life scenario. It will allow us, in the case of these 4 individuals and anyone else who comes up in the future, it could happen again, where we give them that ability for the plan to refund the 1% that they paid in for a benefit that they would never be able to get because they're in this new plan as a director. So, so again, fairly simple, just something that when we drafted this language many years ago, did not consider that scenario. And again, like I said, we have 4 individuals who were in the union, moved in to become a director, and can no longer take advantage of that cost of living adjustment under their benefit. So this will allow us to refund them the contribution that they made over many years.
How is that amount calculated? Is it just the amount they put in, or is it?
Yeah, just the amount that they put in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any questions on that beyond mine? No? All right. Does sound fair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what will happen is we will receive, the council will receive these ordinance changes in their October meeting, as I said, and we'll set it for a public hearing in November. It's been a while since we've had a pension ordinance change, and we'll have others coming up because of some recent union negotiations. So, but these are 2 that are hanging out there with some people who could take advantage of these small changes.
All right.
So next up, we have a resolution appropriating grant funds awarded under Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program. And it's an annual grant that we applied for, and we were fortunate enough to, again, to receive a $4,444 grant. It's a matching grant, which will fund 50% of the cost of a bulletproof vest. And the average cost of a vest is about $1,000. So, and we have generally a 5-year warranty on our vests, so we do need to replace them every 5 years. So, so this resolution will allow us to appropriate those funds to purchase bulletproof vests. I'll pause there for a moment in case there's any questions.
Do not see any.
All right. And next up, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
And then the next resolution, I do recommend, Mr. Chair, if we could withdraw this resolution and add it to the Human and Community Services agenda, which we'll have on October 21st. There are some programmatic changes, programmatic recommendations for utilization of the opioid funds that I think should be discussed through the Human and Community Services Committee. So if it's okay with you, we will withdraw this resolution, add it to the Human and Community Services meeting for October 21st for discussion.
Without objection, we'll move it. I don't see any objections. It's fine.
Okay. And then next up, we have a resolution amending the fiscal year 25 community development block grant to appropriate unexpended grant funds from the previous fiscal year. And this year, we're looking to carry over $777,000. $340,000 will be used for the Wolcott Park restroom. $62,000 would be used for the Kennedy Park bathhouse renovation project. $95,000 would be used for the West Hartford Fellowship Housing Elevator Project. $10,955 would be used for the Journey Home Homelessness Program. And then $168,237 would be put into an unallocated fund of which we will then appropriate $24,000 for additional costs of the Kennedy Park Planning Program, $25,000 for the Journey Home Homelessness Program, and then $15,000 for the Jewish Family Services Program request that they had made, and then $21,000 for new lifts at Cornerstone Pool. And that would leave an unallocated balance of $83,237 that we would find an appropriation for as we move through this fiscal year. So this is an annual resolution that we do when we did one at the last council meeting when we rolled over other grant funds, but this is specific to our community development block grant program. So happy to pause there and answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions, Deb?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This seems like a pretty high number for us to be rolling forward from one year to the next. Is there a reason that we were unable to spend the money? Was it that we couldn't get contractors or bids in time, or what was the federal government delayed in getting us the total amount of funding?
No, yeah, the government, it had nothing to do with it was to your first point. It's, we have dozens and dozens of projects that are taking place throughout town, construction projects. And, specific for the Wolcott Park restroom, just part of the renovation is moving into another fiscal year, allowing us to roll over the funds. Kennedy Park bathhouse. I would need to, and I can ask Helen Rubino Turco how that would relate to it, maybe just the timing of the Journey Home homelessness program and the Jewish Family Services Program. I can ask Helen specifically about why those funds weren't expended in a timely manner, and we could even mention that at the Human and Community Services meeting that we have set up for later this month as well, to Councilor Poland's question. So I need to, and Lisa, you don't know any specifics on those two programs, do you, in terms of why the funds weren't?
I'm trying to look and see if I see any emails on it, but I don't offhand. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's fine. I was just curious more about the total amount. Just seemed like it's bigger than some of the other grants that we do the rollover for. So
they are. We have a much larger dollar amount allocated to CDBG. Seems about normal actually from last year. I'm remembering correctly, but I do remember it being well into the six figures. But and when we do reappropriate it, we do spend it within the appropriate time in that following fiscal year. But a couple of these are programs and not construction projects. So let me circle back with Helen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rick, I'm sorry to interrupt. Rick, as far as 23-24, we had carried forward 1.4 million.
Oh, we did. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that info. Any other questions? No, maybe we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. And just finally, under normal business items, we do have just a quick ARPA update. So at our last meeting, I indicated that we had about a $1.9 million balance, $1.23 million, and then $760,000 left over from our small business nonprofit grant program. In addition, we've requested that so the council has appropriated a number of projects for us to utilize ARPA funds for. And we have requested that all appropriated projects be submitted for procurement by October 15th. So at that point, we will have an exact balance that we will be able to discuss with the council. We do have a meeting on October 28th, our next FNA meeting. Because of the election, we're moving it up a week early. So we will be prepared to talk through the total balance at that meeting, along with recommendations. One recommendation we may have is to allocate additional funds to our affordable housing development program, which is the council had made previously made an appropriation of $6 million of ARPA funds to that program. We may want to add some more. There's a couple folks that have reached out about that program, and we've utilized all the funds. So it might be a good use of ARPA funds to reappropriate more money there. But again, that'll be a decision that we can discuss further and along with others on October 28th.
Great.
And that was it under business items, Mr. Chairman. We have a quick update from our finance department. So Lisa Newton can give us a quick status in terms of where we are with our overall budget.
Yep.
And then from there, we'll move into an executive session on a tax appeal.
All right.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, actually. Just a quick update on general fund projections. At this point, we are expected to have a projected surplus of $164,000, and there are many things that can change throughout the year. So right now, for property taxes, we have them still at budget. We typically don't really look into property taxes until the second collection, but just keep in mind that in the past few years, we've ranged from 99.3 to 99.5% collection rate, and we budget at 99.1%. So there's a lot of flexibility there, but I'm not comfortable updating that until I talk to the tax collector after the January collection. Intergovernmental revenue, we're remaining flat for now. We're still waiting on the state to find out what our supplemental municipal revenue sharing grant will be. We typically get that in October. We were told this year we'll get it before November 1st. Charges for services, the only thing we're really changing is the projection for program revenue, and that is for additional programs that are being offered at ECC this year. After post-pandemic, we're starting to get back to regular amounts of programs. But offsetting that is you will see an increase in temporary payroll in the leisure services department, and they just kind of go hand in hand with each other. There's more bodies needed to have those programs. Miscellaneous revenue, interest income, I have expected to exceed budget by $300,000. We were very conservative in our interest projection last year and did account for potential Fed rate cuts. However, I think that we will come in a little bit higher than we budgeted, and we'll update that as we go along during the year. For personal, so going to expenditures, we're expected to exceed budget by, $234,000. I'm just going to do a really quick overview of this by type of service. So personal services, you'll see that almost every department is over budget. And that is because when we initially adopted the budget, there were a number of contracts that were still unsettled that we subsequently settled. So we've allocated funds in the contingency line, and you'll see an offset in the contingency line for most of the overages you'll see in personal services. That's barring police and fire. Again, police, they're expected to exceed budget by $655,000. It's primarily overtime. We currently have 11 vacancies in the police department, which are all covered by overtime. And in the fire department, we're expected to exceed budget by $470,000 in the personal services line, and that's due to minimum staffing requirements, which drives the overtime budget. In addition, there were 2 retirements for $52,000 in fire and 3 retirements in police for $105,000. Let's see. And I talked about leisure services. Their personal services line will be over budget by probably about $85,000 just alone for the new ECC programs that are being offered. So non-personal services, I really didn't touch at this point, except for one, which is fire. It's too early in the year really to know what it's going to look like. with snow budget, all these things that are variable. Fire is projected to exceed their personal services budget. I want to say it's about 65,000, the majority of which is for, we hired a consultant to help with the exams for the fire apparatus promotional position. In addition to that, they've had a few unexpected expenses regarding vehicles, vehicle maintenance. Let's see. And that's pretty much all I have. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Ms. Blanks? Yes, Ms. Blanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Lisa, would you just repeat, I'm sorry, your voice kind of trailed off when you said what the few unexpected expenses for fire were?
So they have had to do some work on maintenance of vehicles. They had something with some oil with a diesel engine, so they're just unexpected maintenance expenses on their vehicles.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else? I can't see quite everybody on my screen, but I don't see any other questions. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll look forward to your next report. All right.
So next up, we would move into executive session. And I
All
see
right.
that
We have our email for that.
Assistant Corporation Counsel, Deputy Corporation Counsel has joined us. Ms. Ferrano is on the call, so she will help us walk us through the tax appeal.
Right. We'll do that when move that we move into executive session and invite Deputy Corporation Counsel and Mr. Ledwith to join us. Do I have a second on that?
Mr. Chair, do you need to indicate the purpose for the executive session?
We do. As stated by Mr. Ledwith, for the, do we need the tax appeals? Do we actually don't have the agenda up? Actually, yeah, if you have them in front of you, someone want to read the tax appeal?
I will, I'll make the motion. I move that we
go.
enter executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy and negotiations with respect to the following pending tax appeal: Mark J. Freeman and Jane S. Freeman versus Town of West Hartford.
You have a second? Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Paulin, for getting me on the right path. And we'll see you over on the other side. And then I assume we'll be back for a vote here. Thank you.